Hello, everyone. I'm Jodi Elowitz, Director of Education and Engagement for the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanity Center, and I'm here today with my colleague, Lauren Karras.
Hi, everyone. I'm the Education Outreach Manager for the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanity Center. Happy to be here.
And together, we are going to give you a 360 tour of our museum and talk to you about the many ways that you can engage with us here at the center. So where we are right now is in what we call the concourse area of Union Terminal. It is a very important spot for us and our museum because this is where survivors who took the train to Cincinnati took their very first steps towards rebuilding their lives in Cincinnati. As many of you know, Union Terminal used to be a train station, and it still is on various evenings and weekends. But we really are the only Holocaust museum in the United States to have a direct connection to their space. And so what you're seeing here are some sculptures that when you come on a field trip or you should come on your own, we have you take a look at them and interpret them based on the types of individuals who would have been coming and going through this space in the 1930s and 40s. You will also notice if you look at the sculpture that's turned around in the way back, that if you walk around the back of the sculptures, you will see documentation that starts to identify who these people might be and gets you thinking about what kind of identification, what kind of paperwork was necessary to come to the United States, either before the war or after the war. So that is some topic that we do discuss in our museum. Those documents continue wafting down our stairwell, and we take those all the way through to our lobby. Here in the lobby, you see what is known as a graphic mural or a comic book splash page. In each one of these sections, there is a different individual, a local witness to history. In our museum, what also makes us unique is that we tell the history through the testimony, photographs, voices, and artifacts of our survivor community. So we make a local connection to a global historic event. So from here, we would go into the Winds of Change Theater. We come out into this section that is known as Mosaic. Mosaic is a very important spot in our museum. This is where we individualize the number 6 million. When we're studying the Holocaust, that number can be extremely overwhelming. And behind that large number is an individual. And so we wanted to be sure that when you come to the museum, or if you are studying this topic, that you do start with Jewish life before the war. Another factor that makes this such an important area is we don't want to start the conversation about this particular period in history by looking through the lens of the perpetrator first. We want to see Jews as they really were and how they saw each other. From here, we would go into origins or the beginnings of World War I. From there, we would go into the section on violence, war, and power. I'm going to stop here in power for just one moment because this is the section where we talk about the rise of Nazism. The other thing that we do discuss here is propaganda. And we also discuss the Nuremberg laws that were released on September 15th, 1935. These laws are very important to the study of this particular history because they are when Jews are finally no longer considered citizens of the United States. And the times that we live in today, and with our mission of ensuring the lessons of the Holocaust inspire our action today, we often think about how history intersects. Meaning that there are some, that this history didn't take place in a vacuum. The Holocaust did not happen overnight. It was not inevitable. There were many factors that went into creating this regime, this government regime, and the legal precedents that it set. The Nuremberg laws are important because the lawyers who got together to create these laws looked to the United States for their legal precedents in terms of the Jim Crow segregation laws. They also looked to the United States for immigration laws, and they also looked at how we treated indigenous the indigenous population, and how also we viewed moving west or manifest destiny. We do not call out these historical intersections to create this idea that America is bad. What we do is try to show that how history feeds off of all these other different events and how they play off of one another, and that history isn't created in a vacuum. From here, we turn the corner. And if we wanted to continue our discussion on escaping or on immigration, we do have this particular exhibit. In this exhibit, we talk about how hard it was to get out of Germany, Austria, and Czechoslovakia at the time. What lengths did people have to go to? There were people who were willing to go anywhere, something that Doris Bergen calls the far-flung places, such as people who went to the Philippines or went to Shanghai, China. And so it's very important to us that we establish that this museum also is a museum of Jewish refugees. It's a museum, it tells refugee stories, which certainly we are able to make connections to the world today with. I'm going to turn slightly over here to our display case. And you can see here that we have these letters. These are what are known as the Workany letters. And I am going to turn it over to Lauren. And Lauren is going to tell you a little bit about these letters in our museum, but also a great new resource that we have created for you to use in the classroom.
Yeah, so these are letters that were written to Dr. Joseph Workany, who was originally from Austria, and he leaves Austria in the early 1930s and comes to Cincinnati, where he works at Cincinnati Children's. He leaves Austria because he's actually fleeing anti-Semitism in Austria. He was unable to find a job, and so he relocates in Cincinnati. And while he's in Cincinnati, as the Nazis kind of rise to power and kind of clinch power over Austria with the Anschluss in 1938 and annex Austria, Dr. Workany starts to get dozens, hundreds of letters. How many letters do we have in our collection, Jodi?
We have 198.
198 letters from all sorts of people. These are people that maybe knew his family, that knew of him. There are people that were total strangers that he had never even met in his life. And essentially they're all asking him for help to escape Austria, and if he can sponsor them and give them an affidavit to be able to get into this country. And Dr. Workany works tirelessly to help these people, to try to help them escape. He is able to get his immediate family out of Austria, but he is actually unable to actually help anyone else relocate despite his efforts. At one point, he even writes to British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain saying, like, yes, you have your policy of appeasement and you say that you've reached peace for our time, but who's really at peace? Look at all these people who are writing me, these innocent victims of Nazism who don't feel like they're living in any sort of peace, right? They're all trying to escape, and you should be aware of the impact of your policy. And of course, during this time, we're also dealing with US immigration policy, which was not friendly to refugees, to people of Eastern European descent. This policy had been put into place in the 1920s in the United States. And so it was extremely difficult for people to get out. And so when I was teaching and when I was in the classroom, a lot of kids would ask the question, why didn't Jews just leave Germany when Hitler rose to power? And so we wanted to address that question through an inquiry lesson with that question, why didn't Jews just leave? And we do this by using these letters to Dr. Workany from our collection. So here is our website. And we have under educators, there's a curricular resource page, and you'll see this lesson here. Why didn't Jews just leave? The story of the Tutman family. So as Jodi said, we have 198 letters in our collection. We decided to choose just 3 letters from one family, an Austrian family, Salo Tutman, his wife, and they have a young daughter who's 10 years old. And Mr. Tutman is writing to Dr. Workany during this time. And in just these 3 letters, we can see the impact the human impact of the policy of appeasement and US immigration policy. And so I won't belabor the point, but I do want to just showcase for you the resources that if you click on this link here, we will lead you to a Google Drive where you can see that we have an educator guide that gives you the context as far as who the Tutmans were, who Dr. Joseph Workney was, and kind of lead you through the lesson structure of how you could go through this lesson with your students. This is an inquiry lesson where we're giving students 4 different sources that we have presented in a way that's accessible for freshmen and sophomore students in high school. We have a teacher PowerPoint here that kind of helps to lead, the teacher would use to help to lead students through this lesson. Right? And then we also have guiding questions that go with the documents. We have provided a historical timeline so that students can have the correct context as they approach these documents. And then again, in the teacher PowerPoint, we give students ideas for annotating this timeline to bring their attention to important historical dates that will help inform them as they read the letters. We also talked to them about what all was needed to get into the United States and out of Austria, and bring students' attention to how difficult that was. And finally, of course, we have these letters that I will just say are so impactful and that really show the urgency and desperation that people felt in trying to flee Nazism. We also included in here that letter that I just talked about, which was Dr. Workney's letter to Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain. So we have students go through this exercise of reading these documents, analyzing these documents, and we end with having them answer our historical question, right? Why didn't you leave Europe? They're asked to write a claim and support it with evidence from the documents. And then included in the PowerPoint, we know that students would ask, like, what happened to the Tutman family? And so we answer that question. Jodi did a lot of amazing research into what happened to the Tutmans and was able to actually find out that they were deported from Vienna, they were in Theresienstadt, and unfortunately, they later perished in Auschwitz. And so, you know, unfortunately, this story does not have a happy ending, and most escape stories or attempted escape stories don't necessarily have a happy ending. And we want students to be able to grapple with like the hard parts of history while doing this work of what a historian would do, right? Digging into primary sources, forming a claim and supporting it with evidence. Jodi, did I miss anything or anything else to add?
So. And also we created this in a way that would be easy for your students to analyze, but we do have other, if you want to go deeper, we do have the actual German documents that we could supply. We do have envelopes that are postmarked that can lead to clues to bring students closer to the story. And there are other ways for you to take this story further if you wish. But I think, and you know, this is just one way that we take what is in the museum and bring it to you into the classroom. So one of the great things, I show you this 360 tour, and one of the things that of course we want for you to do is come to our museum. Take a field trip to the museum. We are open, we are booking field trips, but if you can't get here, there are other ways to engage with us. So for example, the 360 tour that I'm giving you right now, we can come and give in your classroom. Lauren just pulled up this wonderful page of curricular resources that we have various resources on that can be used by you who are social studies teachers or ELA teachers, or maybe in partnership with one another. There's writing activities. All of these are formulated to have critical thinking skills, analysis skills, all the things that we want our students to have in order to graduate. So everything is included in these lessons in order for you to just take and implement into your classroom. If you don't want to have us come and do a 360 tour, we have a 360 tour and activity in which students can either take the tour on their own and answer questions. Lauren is going to bring it up right now so that you can see what it looks like. And we have For example, we do have, like I said, a clip of the tour or a whole 360 tour that they can view on their own. For example, you remember me talking about the sculptures in our concourse area. Here is a slide that the students can work on. They can click on an audio clip, which I believe is my voice talking about those sculptures. And then also you can, and they can answer the questions. So listen to a clip about the mural. Here's Stephanie Marks. And then these questions like, why do you think HHC created the mural in the style of a graphic novel? What did you learn about Stephanie from her mural segment? And then we go through the rest of the museum, and they can do that either on their own or you could do it as a class together. So this is an asynchronous or synchronous activity, as well as the others are as well, actually, with, so there are the Elie Wiesel tour is also synchronous and asynchronous as well. And so is some of these other ones. We do have upstander activities, which I'll talk about a little bit more when we get to the humanities section. So I think we can leave this and go back to the museum. And so from there, like I said, we have field trips, we have the 360 tours that we can do. You have an example of the curricular resources that you can do. The curricular resources are all available for free on our website. The 360 tours do have, if you want one of us to come and do a 360 tour on Zoom into your classroom, there is a fee that is associated with that. And of course, there are fees for the field trips, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm just going to move through the museum rather quickly now. This is a section on massacres, the section on ghettos, and from ghettos, then we move to concentration camps, resistance, Jewish resistance, deportation. And you can see here, we are right on the railroad tracks. And so we did cut a hole in the window here. We do not shy away from the duality of trains in regards to our museum. We do know that most people, when they think of the Holocaust and they think of trains, they think of trains that took people to the killing centers. But we know from our own experience in our own building, trains also brought people to life or to escape. So we don't want to shy away from that. We also, we also built our own little train that pops out when you press the button. I should remark that our experience is different than other Holocaust museums. We have interactive experiences, so we are telling this history in layers. And so when people are self-exploring our museum, if you press a button, another layer is revealed, another layer of the complexity of this history is revealed. And so you really can either you can surface, skim the museum, or you can dive deeper. And we've given you lots of different ways to do that. As I said in the beginning, we really explore these stories in 4 different ways. One is through quotes or words or text. Another is through artifacts. Another is through artistic representation or photographs. And then here you have actual video testimony. So you can hear the voices of the survivors talking about their experiences. And there is nothing more important than hearing the survivors tell their stories. Lauren and I can both tell you that much research has been done in terms of using testimony in the classroom. One is because it builds empathy, another that it helps develop critical thinking skills. And again, all the things that we're trying to do as teachers for students. Do you have anything to add to that, Lauren?
No, I think you're doing beautifully summed up.
All right, so from there, of course, we have Annihilation, which talks about the killing centers. We have Leo Willick's uniform, that for many of you who have already visited our museum, is a very important artifact, which tells the story of Leo Willick and what happened to him and his brother, and how Leo viewed that uniform, which I'm not going to go into here because I hope you'll come and visit. And then from here, survival, we go to liberation, in which we talk about liberation in the form of media. How did people find out about the Holocaust? We know how important media literacy is right now. Here's a great place to start having that conversation. And certainly, if you're interested in professional development for your school or for your teachers, media literacy is one of the many professional developments that we would be more than happy to come and do at your school. And hey, Lauren, while I'm turning the corner here, do you want to talk a little bit about the other professional development that we offer?
Yeah, so we offer professional development both here at the center, and then we also will go into schools and have on-site professional development. When working with schools on-site, we are flexible and want to work with schools to present something that they're working on with their staff. But an example of some workshops that we've done are workshops around anti-Semitism and how to address anti-Semitism in your school community. We do a workshop on kind of like best practices in teaching the Holocaust, like Holocaust 101, right? Like if you only have 2 or 3 days to teach the Holocaust, here's how we can help support you in doing that and doing it some type of justice. And then we also have professional development around our humanity-based education, which is what you're looking at here as we're about to enter the Humanity Gallery, where we talk to students about using their unique character strengths, and you can see them listed on that wall, to become upstanders in their community and to stand up against injustice and to take an active role in our democracy. So those are some things that we can do on site at your school site. And then we also have PD here at the center. I'll just highlight one real fast before Jodi continues, is that every summer we have an Institute on Teaching the Holocaust, a week-long institute where you get to collaborate with other educators, hear from experts in the field, both from our organization and nationally, and also get really like tangible curricular resources to be able to teach this, as I said, this nuanced and complicated history in a way that's accessible for secondary students. So if you're interested in any of those PD opportunities, on our website, we have a professional development page that tells you more.
Thanks, Lauren. And so, as you can see, Lauren had mentioned our word wall and talking about character strengths and the 24 character strengths that we all have. And then when you go into our Humanity Gallery, there is a film that we show that makes the transition from the Holocaust to the Humanity Gallery. And as I mentioned before, our mission is to ensure the lessons of the Holocaust inspire action today. This is the Inspire Action part of our museum, in which we explore 6 topic areas that are still very much with us today. These topics do harken back to the Holocaust, but these are issues that we need to still tackle, that we need to still think about. And within each of these sections, we highlight individuals who stood up in their moment and used their character strengths to work on some of the issues that we still have with us today. So for example, in protecting civil rights, we talk about a variety of historic events that have taken place both locally and nationally. And one of the individuals in this particular section is somebody who both Lauren and I very much admire, and that is Fannie Lou Hamer. And many people don't know Fannie Lou Hamer, but without her, voting rights would not, she was very much on the forefront of voting rights, of women taking power to get things done. She really was a remarkable individual and so much influence on how we live in our world today. And she really only was on that stage for a very brief and short moment. But we do feature her in our protecting civil rights area. Sharing Our World is about, water access. Standing Up to Hate is about, is exactly what it is. How do we stand up to, racism and other forms of hatred that are still very much permeating our society today? We also talk about finding home. How did the refugees who came to Cincinnati create a home, a place to live, a place to be? And so those are some of the topics that we explore in the Humanity Gallery. And then we end the experience at what we call the Make Your Mark wall. And in the Make Your Mark wall, we wanted our visitors to come through the museum and end the experience with you joining the exhibit, becoming part of the exhibit, becoming part of this community, thinking about what you were inspired by and what you're inspired to do. And so you may leave your photo here to join the 2,400 photo slots that constantly are revolving, in our museum. From there, we leave the museum on this wonderful quote from Edith Carter. Edith Carter was a local Holocaust survivor who was very good friends with a local glass blowing artist, Darren Goodman. And Darren created uh, this art piece of Edith Carter's quote. So every human being has the obligation to contribute somehow to this world. And so, when we are designing our humanity lessons or activities, or the upstander activity boards that we have that you can also find on the curriculum page of our website, we use Mrs. Carter's words to guide us. Also, other ways that you can engage with us. If you don't want to do a 360 tour, you want to do a 360 tour, and you want to have a survivor come, or a speaker, a Holocaust speaker, we are providing Holocaust speakers through Zoom, so that you can have a Holocaust speaker come and visit your classroom. Also, every Wednesday from 11 until noon Eastern time, we have our speaker series. Our speaker series is both on Zoom and usually streams on Facebook Live, so that if you want your students to join in and view a speaker, they can. Lauren, will you do me a favor? I'm going to take this down. Will you put up the page that has all of our archived speaker series?
Sure.
So I'll explain what we do. So every time we have a speaker, we do record it if they give us permission, and we keep all of them so that you can watch later. So for example, you can see that go back to November. So you can see that last week we had a very powerful talk in our museum space because it was the anniversary of Kristallnacht. So Dr. Al Miller, who I've already talked about somewhere along the line here, or maybe I haven't, but Al Miller is going to turn 99 years old this week. He is from Germany. His parents did, experience Kristallnacht. He does tell that story here in the museum. We tell that story in the museum. And Steve Koppel is the son of Werner Koppel. And Werner Koppel is also featured throughout our museum. In fact, he is the survivor who helps us make the transition from the Holocaust Gallery to the Humanity Gallery. And both of them were sitting together last week with one of our colleagues, Trinity Johnson, and they both spoke about Kristallnacht in our museum in front of our exhibit that is dedicated to Kristallnacht, and they talked about their family experiences. So if you were unable to join us, here it is. It's recorded. You can use it in the classroom. It goes back like the last year, so you have a whole year of various speakers that you can connect with. Also, we have had scholars and others come and speak. All of that is available to you to use in your classroom in some format. So there are so many different ways that you can engage with us. Lauren and I are always here. And, if you have a question, if you're thinking about, I don't know exactly, I want to do something, but I'm not really sure if it's the right way to go, you can contact us. We're here to help. We also have something great, and I'm going to have Lauren tell you about it. So we really feel strongly that teachers are upstanders. We know that you are creating future generations, and we want to recognize all the hard work that you do. So Lauren, you want to tell them like what we have now for them?
Yeah, so just this year, thanks to Lily and Mark Kurtz, we have an award to recognize educators for their contribution to Holocaust education. We are so excited to roll this out this school year because teachers are really like the heartbeat, I feel like, of HHC, and we want to make sure that you're feeling recognized. So if you yourself are someone who's committed to Holocaust education in the classroom, and you're teaching the Holocaust, you can nominate yourself, or if you have a colleague who you know is really committed to this work and to our mission, I encourage you to nominate them. We are accepting nominations through the rest of the school year until May. The winner receives $1,000, and then it'll also be like our honor to recognize the winner at a Holocaust and Humanities Center event. So just one more way that we just want to show our appreciation for teachers and hope that you nominate yourself or you nominate someone you know.
And so I also, as you can see, we are relying heavily on our website at the moment. So I did put a link to the website in the chat. On that website, you can find all of the things that we've been talking about today, and including our emails, so that you can get in touch with us directly. Again, I want to thank you for coming with us today and giving you a little bit of sense of like how you can engage with us. And we've only scrape the surface. There are so many other different ways. Have I forgotten anything? And is there something else we should talk about?
I don't think so. I think we covered it in a very timely fashion.
Yeah, so we encourage questions to us. We thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in person very soon, or on, at a Zoom event. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.